the structure of sentences is something Nancy Hennessy has written extensively about. She wrote a phenomenal book called The Comprehension Blueprint. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. But I love this quote, that the reader has to figure out the logical relationships between words to construct meaning. And those relationships are conveyed through sentences. Now, I want you to think about this. So some sentences are tricky. These are adult examples. You would not give these to your students, but I'm going to give them to you today. I want you to circle, or just visually, right? Circle. You're not going to circle right now because you don't have anything to circle, but pretend, or put your finger on the screen and circle the subject and underline the predicate in this sentence. Okay. So, anybody want to tell me? I see, I'm looking at the chat. Anybody want to tell me what the subject of this sentence is? All right, Lindsay. Yay. Ding, 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 ding. The young. What's the predicate? Man. Excellent. Man. So most people, most teachers, when I show them this, say there is no subject, because they're looking at young man. They're looking at man as the subject and young as an adjective, and there's no verb, there's no action word. But that is hard, Stephanie. Yes, it's hard. This is just an example. Tricky. Yeah, you're right, Erin. Very tricky. And I wasn't doing it to be tricky necessarily, but I am saying that some sentences are tricky. Here's another one that may be a little tricky. I want you to find the subject and the predicate in this one. Somebody tell me what the subject is. Good, Kate. It's cotton. And a lot of you said clothing, and that's what most people say because they're thinking cotton clothing. What's the verb? What's the action word? Good, Amanda. Grows. So cotton grows. Now, if I had put a comma here and another comma here, you wouldn't have had a problem with that. But sometimes punctuation is missing from sentences. And so we have to just be really alert and thinking about what would make our sentences and our text hard for kids. I imagine that you all have seen and heard about, or at least many of you, but the 4-part processing model. If you haven't, it's a really important model to show that when we read, we are simultaneously activating the phonological processor, which are the sounds, the orthographic processor, which are the letters, the semantic processor, which is the meaning, and the context processor, or you could think about it as being syntactic processor, which is the sentence, right? So if you hear bow or bow, right? If you hear bow, you're going to do B-O-W. If you hear bow, you're going to do B-O-W. You have to know the context. Even if I say bow, you don't know if it's bow to take a bow or the bow of a ship, right? You need the whole sentence to give you the complete picture of what word we're talking about. So again, we're processing words when we read them in the context of these 4 processing systems. So if you go back to the example of the young man, the jungle gym, we're going to use our context processor, right? This one at the top, to be able to help us figure out what the verb is, right? We have to have the whole, I'm telling you it's a complete sentence, and you're going to go back and read it again and again. Ah, now I know. I never thought man was a verb, an action word. In the second sentence, it's a noun, right? In the third sentence, it's a verb again. Man the fort, gentlemen, but we have man as part of a compound word. I manned the ticket booth at the game. And what about this one? Man, what a day I had. You know what part of speech that is? I'm not going to tell you right now because we're going to come back to it. But you can see where you have to have the context processor at the top of that 4-part processing to figure this out. So when we're reading and when we're developing this neurocircuitry that you've heard all about for learning to read, syntax is a big part of it because words have to have a structure to reflect our thoughts. And this is something Marianne Wolf talks about all the time. And then structures need words to give them meaning. This is a quote from a wonderful book, little known, not as well known as Read or Come Home, but another goodie by Marianne Wolf. But this work goes back to Chomsky, who's a very renowned linguist who talked about the importance of syntactic knowledge and how it grows over time. And what makes it grow? Actually, exposure to sophisticated types of reading. And those texts are things that we can read to our kids from birth, and it matters. So proficient comprehension is influenced by adequate syntactic knowledge, just bringing that quote home. So when we talk about syntactic knowledge, the quick definition is it's our ability to understand, and not just understand those sentences, but to create them, a variety of grammatical structures within the context of a sentence, and it supports students' comprehension of text. Another goodie, Wolf got all serious wordplay. It's in your reference section at the end. I love this text too. It was published in Perspectives, talking about the fact that children who are exposed to a variety of sophisticated written sentences have better comprehension and more syntactic knowledge. Correspondingly, children with highly developed knowledge are better able to comprehend text that has more complex syntax instruction. Because think about it, our oral language develops for free, right? We are wired to acquire language. We just have to hear it, and we have to hear the right amounts of it, and we have to hear the academic language to build that language system. It doesn't come, not every aspect of it comes easily. I don't want to say it that way, because certainly learning to speak and listen is something that kids need to be immersed in to develop. And if you have working memory difficulties, which is something you're born with, that will impact, right? It says, for some, these problems are related to their syntactic knowledge, their understanding to comprehend different sentence structures. Shankweiler and Liberman, who were researchers at Haskins, and I had the pleasure of studying with Isabel Liberman, hypothesized that problems are the result of difficulties retaining and processing information in verbal working memory, because these students struggle with parsing syntactically complex sentence constructions, and you're going to see examples of that. Some of our complex sentences are hard to parse, and what adds to that is students' difficulty hanging on to a big chunk of the sentence, right? Which is part of verbal working memory, so they can get to the end of the sentence and remember what happened at the beginning of the sentence. So let's practice really quick. I'm going to show you a part of a sentence, and you're going to read this out loud in your, wherever you are, or maybe you're just going to read it to yourself, but read it prosodically. So we have so what would you say? Is this a sentence that exemplifies subject, verb, object, right? Or is it object, verb, subject? We talk about SVO or OVS. So you could put that in the chat. And Tiffany, by the way, you're right. Wow is an interjection. Man is an interjection in that prior slide. So the sunset actually captured my interest. So it actually is subject, verb, object. If I said my interest was captured by the sunset, then it would be OVS, right? Is this a compound or a complex sentence? So Suzanne said compound, and you're right, Suzanne. And why did you say compound? We're going to go back to this if you don't know the answer, so no problem. But what makes it compound, right, Suzanne, is it has a fanboy. It has the conjunction so, which is a coordinating conjunction. Excellent. So what do teachers need to know about sentence instruction? If you haven't read Shanahan's blog, he comes out with a blog every Saturday evening, at least that's when I read it. And I always enjoy reading it because he gives me food for thought. He wrote this blog a couple of years ago now, almost 2 years ago now, and I was thrilled because, I was immersed in syntax. And so reading this, I was like, oh, you just confirmed all the work that we're doing and what I believe is true. He talks about this collection of studies in this blog, and you can go back and Google it and find it. Collection of studies, because that's what Shanahan does. He reads the research and then he digests it for us, so we don't have to read it all. And he gave a lot of examples of studies that found sentence knowledge was important to comprehension as early as 30 months old and throughout the grades K through 12. The studies found syntax mattered with regular classroom kids and kids with dyslexia. They reported the pattern in all these languages. They found syntax to matter with not only native English speakers, but English language learners. So syntax played a significant role in comprehension, both in studies that measured those simultaneously and when we looked at longitudinal research that showed the relationship over time. So I was thrilled. I knew this, but Tim Shanahan reaches lots and lots of teachers. So it made me feel really good about the work that we're doing.